Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you'd like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams twice a month, be able to read my comic books for free and more, you can become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, receive blog posts showing my work in progress, find out what I'm reading and watching, things that are going into me, going into my brain, fueling the creative tank, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics or if you read digitally on Kindle or Comixology, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man who is cursed with visions he cannot control. I am both the artist and writer. You can also pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series broken into 2 volumes. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8, the conclusion of the series. Both volumes have extensive back matter. They're full of character sketches, script excerpts, page layouts, and more. You can pick up all that at amazon.jeremy.net. And before we go much further, I also want to give a hearty shout out to new Patreon subscriber Trevor Nielsen, a friend of the show, good friend of mine. I have a piece of artwork hanging in my studio from him. He's now a Patreon subscriber. You too can join that club for as little as $2 a month. Just head over to patreon.com/Jeremy. But Trevor, thank you so much. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love. Appreciate your friendship. You are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Okay, let's see here. We got Amaris in the chat. We got Elon's in the chat. How you guys doing? So today we are doing something a little different. Actually, not different, just getting back to things that I used to do and have fallen off from. A little bit of figure drawing. I used to do a series pretty regularly called Fixing Bad Figure Drawings, because I take figure drawing classes regularly. I've been studying with an instructor named Carl Ganas pretty much for several years now. I've been taking classes with him, and I've been taking them recently virtually at his website, Figure Drawing School. And, you know, a lot of people assume that when you do figure drawings, it's like, oh, you just do the drawings and you get better. Figure drawing, I would say, figure drawing classes specifically have been the most instrumental thing in terms of helping me grow as an artist over the past 10 years. But I would say, along with the figure drawings themselves, what has really helped is the practice of going over my drawings from class and analyzing the bad drawings, taking a look at the ones that did not come out well, and then just redrawing them and drawing them with an analytical eye. Now it's just, I'm not trying to make a pretty picture. I'm trying to figure out what it is about gesture or volume or anatomy that I don't know or that I haven't mastered in order to practice those things. And so that the next time I'm in figure drawing class, or the next time I'm working on a comic book page or an illustration, I can come back with more knowledge, come back having figured out what it is that I was missing. So I've got a few different sheets of drawings that I did in class yesterday, actually. And I'm just going to go through and pick some of the ones that are a little bit wonky, and I'm just going to redraw them. So I'm going to start with this one up here, and we'll see, depending on how much time it takes, I actually want to start with just one of these poses, and then I actually want to move to doing a drawing, but redrawing it on toned paper using white chalk for the white charcoal pencil for the highlights. And that's because, you know, the class I've been working on is more of a longer pose using anatomy and light and tone. And, you know, a lot of times, like for instance, the poses that I have on this page, these are 5-minute poses. So it's a 5-minute sketch. You know, most times I don't even have time to get down to drawing the model's face. It's just pure volume and gesture and structure. But I find that, you know, I need more time in order to really work on things like light and tone. And I can kind of suggest those things in figure drawing class, but in order to really work on them, I need to have the time, something a little bit longer, doing studies like these. So the first thing I'm working on here is just trying to get the gesture better. And I personally just try to start my gestures out as very simple stick figures. Because if I can make the drawing feel like what I'm going for in a stick figure without even really working the volumes out, and that's a really good sign that I'm off to a good start in terms of the drawing. And a lot of times, the biggest challenge in most drawings is you may get that gesture down, but in the process of adding volume, adding structure, adding anatomy, I'm sure we've all had those experiences where you start off with a drawing and you had a great gesture, but in the course of refining it, you've killed it. You've killed that life. Just stiff, rigid, not particularly dynamic. So it's a constant battle, but it's a battle that I enjoy. It's not like I'm saying, "Oh, it sucks," blah blah blah. No, no, no. The chasing the proper gesture and trying to keep the gesture alive throughout the whole drawing is arguably what keeps figure drawing interesting for me. The fact that it's challenging for me to master. Now, I can tell you when the model took this pose in the drawing session in the class, I already knew right from the get go that it was going to be trouble for me because there's a really dynamic contrapposto twist that she had, but also the fact that there was deep foreshortening in the figure in terms of one hand coming forward in space and one hand going back in space. And I knew right when the model took the pose, I'm like, ooh, I knew when the model took the pose that I didn't get it. And even now in this correcting stage, I'm looking at this and I'm like, I still don't quite have it. And I think that's the reason why, I picked this particular drawing to start with, because this was out of all the things that I did in class last week, I had a couple of decent drawings. More often than not, in a class where we may be doing like anywhere from 10 to 20 drawings, depending on the length of the pose, I may get, 3 or 4 that I think are actually decent drawings. This was one of the ones that I knew in the middle of class, like as soon as the model took the pose, I'm like, oof, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this down on the page. Because honestly, foreshortening with stick figures, like, the thing I mentioned, starting with stick figures, trying to convey foreshortening with the stick figure, that is pretty tough. Let's see here. Yeah, Elon says, yeah, quick and loose is how I work on figures. Mara says, I haven't been around, got obsessed with knitting and designing my own knits. That's cool. Sounds like a fun thing to work on. A nice change of pace from comic work and graphic novels and such. Yeah, starting with in the figure, some people start very scribbly, and it's not that I think that that's a bad way to go, but I know that for me, I found that I had a big problem where I was just putting too many lines on the page, and there were lines that weren't saying anything. And that's the thing for me personally, why I try not to get so scribbly. I try instead to just make a very simple light line, which sometimes I have to I make little marks on the side, just kind of recalibrate in terms of making a simple, smooth, light tone. If I can get into the habit of blocking the entire figure in with all smooth light tones, it's solid enough that the drawing has structure, but light enough that I can move things around, that I can draw into these tones. And I think this act of going back and redrawing my bad drawings from class, it activates something in my brain because I have to really be analytical. But at the same time, I have to use my imagination because I know that I didn't get everything down that I intended in the original drawing. So, to a certain degree, it's up to my imagination to say, wait, no, this volume should be like this. This hip should be a little bit lower. This should be a little bit taller. Um, that idea of not copying your reference exactly, but instead editing it to make whatever will give you the best pose or the best gesture. You're not necessarily trying to do kind of a site size like some people, and again, I've said this before, I am not anti site size. It's just that site size is for drawing from things in front of you or from photographs. It's not that useful if you're a comic artist or an animator or a concept designer. Or rather, it doesn't give you what you need. You need to be able to create things out of your imagination. So I'm not anti-site size. It just isn't a tool that gives the results for the type of art that I make. Let's see here. Oh, Amaris is giving out the love there. She said, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button as well. Thanks for the reminder, everyone watching. If you enjoy these videos, if you enjoy this channel, want to help spread the word, definitely hit that like, hit the subscribe button. The little notification thing will give you the little bell there will let you know when I've got new videos, when I'm going live. And if you know somebody else you think would enjoy the type of stuff that I'm doing here, that's into drawing, figure drawing, hearing people talk about the drawing process, the creative process, feel free to share it. In fact, not just feel free, I encourage it. Elon asks if I have ever sculpted at all. And unfortunately, no. I signed up for a sculpture class at a place in Los Angeles called Mount San Antonio College. And it's not an art college, it's a community college. But it's out by where I used to live, near where I grew up. And I was in between jobs. And whenever I'm not working full time, I always feel, well, I'm trying to take classes no matter what. I'm always trying to learn and improve and grow my knowledge. But in between jobs, I thought maybe I can take a class during the day, at a time period where I normally would not be able to take a class. So I'd signed up for a class on sculpting, and it was traditional, like clay and sculpty. And it was one of those classes where you learn how to make wire armatures and then build your figure on top of that. And then shortly after I had signed up for the class, I think I went to the first session, and then I got a new full-time job that I can't even remember what the job was anymore because this was many, many years ago. But I moved on to, I had a new job that really schedule wise would have made it very difficult for me to continue taking that class. So I had to drop it. But that said, I have heard from many an artist that taking sculpture is excellent for your fundamentals and for learning a sense of volume and structure because you're not just looking at two-dimensional forms, you're actually handling volumes. You're shaping them by hand. It definitely improves your sense of volume. I think Proco recently started a new Proco course specifically just on sculpture. I think it's called Proco 3D. I don't know if I'm going to have time to dig into sculpting anytime in the near future, but it is something that I'm not interested in sculpture for the sake of sculpting. Like it's an art form that I want to pursue, but I am interested in it in terms of what it can do for my sense of volume and mass. So, what about you, Elon? Did you have you taken some sculpture classes or done any sculpting on your own? Let's see here. Mighty Geek. Mighty Geek Studios says the more you redraw your old drawings, the more improvements you will see. Yeah, it's funny. For a long time, I took figure drawing classes and I just, I was improving slowly. So getting in front of a live model will help you no matter what. It will definitely help. But I wasn't improving necessarily to the speed that I would have liked until until I started specifically redrawing my bad drawings from class. And there's something about the act of confronting your mistakes. And again, I always like to say it's not about beating up on yourself, but just being analytical and saying, all right, why is this not working? Yeah, the tough part here is getting the foreshortening for both of these arms to work. I have a book of photo reference called The Atlas of Foreshortening. And it's really not like an atlas of human anatomy. But it's a book of photo reference of a variety of foreshortened poses. And that's another thing that I have not looked at as much as I should. Sometimes I have a lot of reference laying around the house and I don't use it. And then I wonder why my work isn't as good as I would like it to be. I kind of cheated this pose a little bit here because I've got the model's hip, the foot that's raised, I have the hip dropped a little bit lower. And the thing that I found that was odd when the model took this pose was that actually her hip was higher up. Almost it was still dropped slightly, but it was a lot more near almost being like even, almost horizontal. And I see now that's probably the reason why I'm having so much trouble with the foreshortened leg that's going back behind it, because really you would be able to see the foot going all the way down without disappearing behind the leg, because it would be kind of slipping behind the knee instead of down here below the calf the way that I've got it. Let's see here. Elon says, "Sorry, I got to run Super Bowl barbecue. You're the man, buddy. You know what? I know it's Super Bowl Sunday. People are getting prepped for the big game now. Go do what you got to do. Always nice to see you. Thanks for dropping by." Let's see here. Amar is in the chat. Good to see you. It's like I looked down for a second and the comments started rolling in. Iron Rocks is in the chat. Good to see you, man. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar says, I used to create characters using plasticine clay when I was a child to a teenager. Did it a bit in college as well. Amar says, I've done sculpture before, but now I have carpal tunnel. It's kind of hard on my hands. Yeah, that kneading and sculpting and mashing the clay around, that has got to be rough if you've got a carpal tunnel. I hope that the knitting is more soothing for your for the carpal tunnel. Let's see here. Amar says, I never redrew any of my old drawings. They either collected dust or were buried. Well, I mean, the thing for me is that it's not like I need to. If you were wanted to try this, I find that even though I specifically am redrawing stuff from classes, I could just as easily take like a bunch of find some photo reference of, say, some sculptures, like some Michelangelo sculptures, or maybe working from some drawings of the old masters. And just in doing studies from them, the drawings are not going to come out as well as I would like it to. And you can do the same thing with any drawing that you do. Or if you were to go online, say, I forget the name of that website, but there's that reference website, not the not the Croquis Cafe, although they that's a great site as well. But there's a website that has a bunch of timed photo ref on there, and you can just set timers and just work from figures. You can draw animals, environments. And just working from contemporary stuff now. It's not like you have to have your old drawings. You can always make new drawings, and then you do the studies. And I don't know about you, but no matter what I do, whenever I do a study, there's always stuff that's wrong. There's always stuff that can be improved, and then redrawing those. So there's always time to go back and do that exercise if you think it's something that'd be helpful for you. Let's see here. Amar says, I tend to draw, especially in sketchbook, as a method of journaling and practice. He says, it helped me a lot in my drawing as a child. I'd like to get back to it. Not able to do anything large due to space issues. See, yeah, Mighty Geek says the human looks skewed in certain the human looks skewed in certain poses. Yeah, in this particular one, part of what made it so challenging was that when she took the pose, I don't know if you've had this experience, but sometimes I'll be in figure drawing class and I will look at a model, take a pose, and I'll be like, how are they going to hold that for 5 minutes? Like, I knew it was going to be a challenging pose, and the model did a great job. There was no, it's not like the model was wobbling and shifting, but it was such an awkward looking pose in that she was balanced but twisted. And in fact, even this, I realize I'm not giving you enough twist here. There was seriously more contrapposto than what I'm conveying here. I gotta twist this torso a little bit more so we're seeing a little bit more profile. A lot of times, part of this, analytical process is just draw and erase. I try not to do the whole draw and erase a million times, but often I'll put something in and I'll just look at it and I think it works, and then I get a few more lines in. I'm like, no, it needs to be something else. Like, I didn't necessarily convey it here, but my main problem in this original drawing was that I didn't get the foreshortening of the arms right. But I do feel like this twist where the torso is really leaning over, and the fact that I changed it and dropped the hips. I'm wondering if I necessarily should have done that now in terms of dropping the hips, because it really does change the dynamic in terms of one version is the pose arced like this with the hip twisted down and bouncing on up one leg. The other version is the torso, it might be a little bit dropped, But what you're getting is the torso is stretching over and pulling as a counterbalance to this raised foot. And that is really more of what the model in my memory was doing, was counterbalancing. Like everything that was going on in the upper body is simply to balance this raised foot off the ground. And I feel like I may have lost some of that by dropping the hip that's raised. I mean, dropping the hip of the raised foot. Let's see here. Amar says, sculpting or working with clay was always fun. I'm quite out of practice though. I never got anything arthritic from all the years of working on a computer or doing art. He says, I'm glad I never got it. I try now to be careful in terms of stretching my hands, stretching my back, resting. There was one day where I was, and that's why I talk a lot about holding the pencil lightly. A lot of that is just so I don't develop carpal tunnel, because you can get it not just from, you can get hand problems not just from pressing down hard on the paper or the surface, but also how tightly you grip whatever you're drawing with, whether digital or traditional tools. Some people bear down and they're really gripping it hard, and that'll give you carpal tunnel. I'm going to pass this on because people in my figure drawing class helped me. There was one day in class where my hand was bothering me a little bit, and I asked other people if they had any recommendations in terms of any repetitive stress problems or carpal tunnel, any type of hand problems and shoulder problems. And they recommended this great book, and I've read through the whole book. It is excellent. It's very to the point. It describes problems. It describes different types of problems and different types of muscle anatomy problems, your back, your hands, your legs, all sorts of things, problems that being at the drawing table for long times can give you. And then it says, these are the things you can take care of yourself. These are the things you can do to alleviate pain. These are exercises you can do to make your muscles stronger. These are the things where you need to go see a doctor or a physical therapist right away. So it's called Draw Stronger. It's by Creoto Wilberg. And it's called, Draw Stronger, Self-Care for Cartoonists and Visual Artists. So if you don't have this book, I recommend you getting it. I don't currently have any serious problems. Occasionally I feel things that bother my hand or my shoulder or my neck. And I'm trying to stay ahead of those things and manage them now. Doing yoga a couple times a week, getting up from the drawing board, trying to get up once an hour, stretching more. These are all things that you want to keep in mind if you want to have a nice, long art career and stay healthy. So thought, my figure drawing class, my fellow classmates shared that with me to help, and I figure I should pass it on to you guys. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar says drawing from the shoulder or elbow helps, and what I've always tried to do. Yeah, that's the thing. I think drawing from the shoulder, I can draw from the elbow. It's hard for you guys to see here, but because I'm drawing at this table, it's a little bit harder. I find that I'm able to draw from the shoulder better when I'm working in figure drawing class. I will be more upright, and I'm actually reaching outward to draw with my arm extended. Whereas, sitting here at the table, I'm a little bit more cramped in. And when I'm working on comic book pages, I can actually have the surface elevated so that it's actually facing me more. So it's not, my drawing table is at an angle, but it's not a severe steep angle. However, what I'll do is I'll lean a drawing board against this table and raise the angle up even more so that I'm not drawing necessarily at a complete vertical, but I've got the material facing the surface, the drawing surface facing more perpendicular to my body or parallel to my body. as much as possible. Let's see here. More love from Mars right there. Appreciate that. And Amar also recommends a stress ball and a hand grip exerciser. Um, I have a stress ball laying around. I don't know where it is. I should probably find it. Same with the hand grip exerciser. I had one. Now, see, here's an interesting thing in that I know that just overlapping the hand over the thigh will help sell the foreshortening. However, in my memory, the model's pose was not overlapping the thigh; it was out in space. And I'm trying to convey the foreshortening the way that I saw it. This is one of those things where, even though I know that I could do little things to make it look more foreshortened, I'm trying to make it feel like the memory of what I saw. Also, drawing a foreshortened hand is a pain in the ass unless you're Jack Kirby. And the other thing is Kirby draws these amazing foreshortened hands, but I actually have to go look. Normally, when I see those cool Kirby hands, they're always men's hands. They're always coming at you, doing this thing. I don't know how well that works with him doing like more elegant female hands. Um, I have a Mr. Miracle artist edition. I need to go look see if he does any of those famous Kirby like hand coming at you shots with Big Barda and see if he's able to convey, both her strength and elegance. Just redrawing this hand over and over, redrawing this arm over and over. Sometimes it helps if I do a little diagram on the side. Let's say I've got the shoulder here. Triangle. The thumb makes this little triangle here. That's how I try to think of the side of the hand. It's a triangle that can raise up, it can raise down, but it's like it's got a little triangle flapping out from the hand to the thumb knuckle. I mean, also, that triangle has a big egg shape to it. So you can think of it in a lot of different ways. A little sleepy. I was up late last night reading some Teen Titans, actually. I've never really read much Teen Titans, and my library had a digital copy of the Judas Contract, which I already know the big twist of the storyline, so I'm not worried about spoilers. A lot of times, if I already know where a storyline is going, then it's like I'll just pick it up because I'm like, huh, this is a piece of comic book history that I've never read and I want to read. For instance, with Spider-Man, I still have never read Craven's Last Hunt, and it's on my list of stuff to get to eventually. Yeah, I don't think that diagram. Normally, I'll draw a diagram that's like it helps me figure stuff out. I don't think that diagram got any better. Any better. I think that the pose of the figure is better. And I think the other hand, the hand that's behind, it looks better, but it's also not as foreshortened. Let's see here. Mighty Geek says Jack used his hand in his wife's hands for reference. So if I do find some Big Barda hand poses where they're coming at you, I'll know that that's his wife's hand there. Let's see, Jay King's in the chat. How you doing, man? It's good. He says he's at work. Cassiel's in the chat. How you doing? Thanks for showing up. So I'm doing figure studies from figure drawing class. We have some 5-minute poses that I did in class. And as I mentioned at the top of the stream, for me, the biggest educational growth that I get in figure drawing class is from redrawing things that I drew in class that did not come out well. As I like to say, fixing bad figure drawings. And in this case, we've got some strong foreshortening that really did not come out well in class. And even here, I'm trying to break it down into simple shapes, simple volumes. I'm like redrawing the torso now at this point. I think this is one of those where I thought, oh, well, it's not working. Maybe move on to something else. But now I'm getting obsessed. And I want to get that thing that I am not able to convey. We're already 40 minutes in. So what do you guys think? Do you think I should keep working on trying to fix this foreshortened arm, or do you want to see me move on to another pose? Because I spent a lot of time working on just this one thing. And for me, that is common. That's usually what I do, is I just keep working on stuff until I figure out what it is I did wrong. I want to keep this entertaining for you guys too. Let's see here. Cassiel says, Elon. He says Elon Musk is here. It's not Elon Musk. It's Elon Mudd. Anyway, Cassiel, I'm just reworking some drawings from figure drawing class. So this is one where I think I'm honestly, in order to get it, I'm gonna have to go like deeper, like pull out some foreshortening reference. Go watch that replay of the class itself. If anything, that's what I should really do, is just watch the class replay and take another shot at this, because what I've got going on here does not seem to be working. Let me go to another pose from class. So I am admitting defeat with this one. Whatever's going on with this arm, I can't quite get it working. I'm going to erase it one more time and just draw a hand in there. Better, but still not great. So I'm going to try now. Let me unclip these. You don't even have to unclip them, but just change the order. So this pose right here, just head bent, arm up, not so much foreshortening. Again, trying to keep myself in that habit of drawing light at the start when I'm blocking in the figure. You know what? In fact, I was going to start with this pose, but I think I'm going to draw this one on the bottom instead, simply because what the torso is doing in the pose that I started drawing is too similar. The hands are different. The overall tone of the pose is very different, but the twist of the figure is too similar. It was like, I want that sense of throwing different challenges at myself with each pose. So again, starting really simple, just a stick figure, really. what's funny is I look at the screen and it looks very light, and I'm like, you guys can't really see what I'm doing. Whereas on my paper, as I'm drawing, I'm looking at this and it's actually way too dark. Like I tend to try to start as light as possible, really light tones. Almost as if I were drawing the initial drawing with a blending stump. That's what I'm trying to get. Get away from hard lines, at least until I get farther in to the pose and really figure out what I'm doing, where this piece is going. Let's see here. Mara says she just had an idea for a zine. Mighty Geek says, don't try to make it perfect, just believable. Yeah, well, I mean, when I'm doing figure stuff, my approach to the whole thing is different from when I'm doing my comic book work. What I'm aiming for is to get as close to what's in my imagination as possible. When I'm doing figure drawing work, I'm working more from a place of analysis. So it's not necessarily perfect. It's not necessarily even photorealistic, but it's more of, I think it's actually similar to what you said in terms of believable, but in my mind, the way I phrase it is slightly different. So it's not about believability, it's about feel. Does this thing give you the feeling, like even if the anatomy is a little bit wonky, even if they might have limbs that are too long or too short, I'm trying to get the feel of the figure. I'm trying to get that feel not in a cartoony sense, like Will Eisner talks about Bigfoot versus Littlefoot drawing, and Bigfoot being cartoony drawing versus Littlefoot being superhero drawing, stuff that's looking more illustrative and photorealistic. And for me, what I'm trying to do really is carry the energy of the gesture all the way through a finished drawing. That's the big thing. That's my my ongoing battle in terms of figure drawing class. And I think maybe that's what you mean when you say believable. But if it isn't, it's what I'm going for, is just the feel, but getting that feel without making it feel like I'm intentionally exaggerating. Because in drawings, exaggeration is very powerful. But if you make something cartoony, it's like, oh, you're not even really trying to make it feel realistic. And I think it's much harder to create that sense of, let me put it this way, in cartooning, you can break all the rules of reality. That's the beauty of cartooning. In illustration, you're trying to make something feel plausible. Well, I think we're back to what you're saying. So I guess we're definitely saying the same thing. I think with this, all I really did was just tweak the twist that her body is making, that backwards. I'm just bending her backwards a little bit more. I'm spending a far more time working on the torso and that gesture and structure than I really am. Honestly, I still haven't really broken out the base, finished the basic volumes. Her arms are still just, because when in my mind, I tell myself go from stick figure to volume to muscles. And in this, I really didn't get past the stick figure phase in terms of her arms. It's been a lot of time. And as you can see, in terms of how this drawing is developed, down here, her foot is still basically in stick figure phase. And that's one of the things that I try to do so that I don't just start on one part of the body, like the head or the arm or whatever, and just work on that and then end up not finishing anything else. Is I try to keep myself jumping around the figure, moving around the figure. Now this arm is a little bit too long, so I got to get the length right. That up there. Just sort of indicating a little bit of facial features here. Not facial features, but head structure. Yeah, if anything, this makes me want to go back to the other drawing that I was fighting with. Because I'm like, look at this one. I'm like, no, this one's coming out okay. I've gone through, I looked at places where the first one just felt wonky. And this one feels a lot more like, oh, I'm just making corrections. I'm just going in, adjusting things that structurally weren't working in the first one, correcting some stuff here, adding a little bit of tone and volume. And I'm like, well, hell, if I can fix this, I should be able to fix the other one. Let's see here. Cassiel says, hey, do you have movies or classic movies that you want to watch? Well, yeah, actually. Um, for instance, well, I don't know about not classic in the sense of old black and white movies, but there's tons of older movies I never got around to seeing and have wanted to watch. So I recently watched the Guillermo del Toro film Nightmare Alley. Watched it, loved it, thought it was a great movie, great story. Um, definitely moving away from the supernatural stuff that he's done in the past. It was just a great character drama. Um, I enjoyed it, thought it was fantastic. And in watching that, when it was done, I thought to myself, you ever get that where it's like kind of like when you have a good meal and it filled you up, but you're kind of like, I just want the taste of more. I thought to myself, huh, I've seen Pan's Labyrinth multiple times. I've got a DVD of it. Um, there's other movies I still haven't seen of his. So I went and I watched Kronos because that's his first film, and I've never gotten around to seeing Kronos. So I watched that Friday night, and I didn't enjoy it as much as say Pan's Labyrinth or Nightmare Alley, but I thought it was a good film. It was interesting. I thought it was there was a lot going on for a first time director's film. Um, a very dark, creepier take on vampires. I mean, it does show its age in terms of it looks like a film from the late '80s, early '90s. But I think that's just the way the film stock looked back then. But yeah, so that's an older film that I watched. I have a running list of things that I want to see and haven't necessarily gotten around to seeing. Um, I want to make my way through the entire Alfred Hitchcock catalog. I mean, I own Rear Window. I've seen The Birds before. Trying to think of other Hitchcock movies I've seen. I'm pretty sure I've seen Lifeboat, even though I don't remember a ton of it. Like I don't remember who the actual killer is. Um, but Hitchcock is another one who I want to make my way through his entire catalog because he's a great storyteller, and so I want to watch his stuff just for watching the storytelling mastery. Yes, I've seen Psycho. Obviously, Psycho is that's a masterpiece. Not actually one of my favorite films of his. Very very good and very well told. Um, I definitely like Rear Window better. I liked Rear Window and Vertigo, I think, more than Psycho. But I have by no means seen all of the work, the entire canon of Hitchcock, and I want to work my way through all of his movies. Having done westerns, I feel like I should watch more John Ford movies. I'm pretty sure John Ford directed The Searchers, and I think that might be the only movie of his that I've seen. Sergio Leone, obviously I've seen The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and not too long ago I watched Fistful of Dollars, but I've not watched A Few Dollars More. So watching all of Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. I mean, yeah, I'm done with my Western comic book here, but I wanted to do it because I remember enjoying westerns as a kid, but my memory of the westerns that I watched, like for instance, I think like Two Mules for Sister Sarah and The Man Who Shot Liberty. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is one I have not seen, and everyone highly recommends to me. I just need to make time for it. But a lot of these are movies that I remember seeing commercials for on TV when I was a little kid, and they looked really cool, but I never got around to watching the actual thing. Or sometimes when you watch movies as a kid, you really just don't retain any of the information. So that's probably where a lot of my fascination with westerns. Well, that's where it's at. I don't know if I can't say where it started. It just started with sometimes you see stuff on TV and you're like, oh, that looks real cool. Let's see here. Castiel says he has a mental list. He watched Hitchcock's Psycho and it wasn't scary. He said, but The Shining doesn't scare me, but it grabs you in the chair. I thought The Shining I think The Shining is creepy as hell. You know, it's one of those where it's not necessarily about the jump scare. First off, I don't like jump scares. It's not that it's not that they actively bother me. It's that making something playing dramatic music so that you're expecting something to happen and then having somebody get an axe to the head or having something jump out and kill them, it's gonna make you jump. Um, but it's not the same as somebody watching something and feeling an unsettling chill creep over their body, and you just go, oh, like you just go, oh. Like that's to me, that's the kind of horror movies I like. I like movies that just they creep you out. They get under your skin. Um, Trying to think of a good example. Like for me, I don't know if you've ever seen a movie. There's an old Adrian Lyne movie called Jacob's Ladder, starring Tim Robbins, and that is probably my all-time favorite horror film. And it's not about jump scares or blood and guts. It's about a man who can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality and feels like he's losing his grip on reality. At least that's what it appears to be on the surface. Even though it's an older movie, a lot of people haven't seen it, so I don't want to spoil it. But it's worth watching. It's very much worth watching, and it's not about the thing that I find horrifying about it is that it makes you feel what it would feel like to be losing your mind, or at least what I imagine it would feel like. Great film. I love that. I'm trying to think, what are some other horror films I really liked? I really liked Rosemary's Baby. That one I thought excellent. The Exorcist, of course, and The Exorcist really did scare me. That movie, I think, is extremely scary and unsettling. And I have not watched the TV series that's based on The Exorcist. I know what the big twist of the first season is. And to be honest, that really makes me want to watch it. There's so much to remember this way. I got so much drawing to do, and there's so little time. I mean, hell, you see how long it's taken me just to redraw a bad drawing from figure drawing class. You know, a 5-minute drawing, I spend 20 minutes kind of going in, analyzing. Let's see here. Castiel says, when I watched the trailer for The Shining with the blood in the elevator, it's mysterious. You don't know exactly what you will watch. Said, it's like the trail of Clockwork Orange, very chaotic. Well, both are Kubrick movies, so it makes sense. All right. So we're at about an hour here. And I actually still have a lot of figure drawing work to do. Like a lot of the stuff that I have for class, a lot of these, I've got a bunch of drawings that just did not come out that well. And I'm trying to go through and redraw and analyze and just look at, you know what? We'll go a little bit longer and I'll draw one more here. Let's see here. So this figure right here from the back, again, some foreshortening. And I don't even know what was happening with her front arm. I presume that it was out forward against, there's a wall in front of the model. Like in front of, as in facing away from us on the other side. And I presume that she probably had her hand on there, supporting her weight. And this was another one where there was a lot of foreshortening going on. So I'm going to do this drawing here, and then we are going to call it a day. So if you guys have any final questions or thoughts, now's the time to ask them. By the way, I'm still working on the Medusa piece. I just felt like doing a change of pace today. So Medusa piece is still happening. Either I'll be working on it next week, or maybe, I mean, God forbid I actually finish it over the course of the week. But I posted about this briefly on my Patreon, but I recently switched my schedules where the time that I save for drawing during the day, I'm switching over to writing because I haven't been writing. I've been telling myself for ages I was going to start writing every day. But the problem I have is I thought, oh, well, I'll just do my drawing kind of in the evening while I'm hanging out with my wife because I don't need to be thinking. I can just be sitting here. I mean, it's kind of like when I'm sitting here with you guys. I can just have my hand going, hang out with her, get some family time. But I haven't been. It's been, watching something that I actually want to pay attention to so I'm not drawing. And then after, we're done with dinner and after done watching stuff, I'm tired and I'm like, I should probably turn in. So I have not been doing much artwork. And I'm trying to find now a balance between making art and writing. I mean, with most things with artists, we tend to be bad at scheduling. So it's a scheduling issue, it's a priority issue, making sure I've got time to get the stuff I need to get done. And then sometimes I don't draw just because or I don't write because I'm like, you know what? As much as I said I'm going to change to this schedule, sometimes for me, drawing is an act of self care. Like I go through the entire workday and I've done all the stuff I needed to do, but I'm like, I really just need some time to shut my brain off and let the pencil move across the page. So some days I'm doing that. So I'm in a little bit of a jumble, weird transitional phase, and I'm not sure where I'm going to land in all of this. Because now I'm sort of not finishing drawings or finishing writing. And I'm looking at this pose and I'm like, it feels more volumetric, but it also feels like I just sort of crunched her body. Yeah, that's not working. That is absolutely not working. Let's see here. Cassiel says, why is anyone not talking in the chat? Um, Iron Rock says, I can't remember anything. Well, sometimes the chat goes quiet. That's okay. I'm fine with just being a voice to keep you guys company while you're making art or doing whatever creative tasks you're working on. Cassiel, what are you working on these days? Are you doing any art? Are you doing any drawing? Are you studying anything? What are you up to? Yeah, basically, I just lengthened her body out here, and I was trying before to really get some foreshortening, so you feel like her rib cage was moving away from you. But that foreshortening just wasn't pulling off, and what I was getting instead was just a torso that felt too short. Now I'm coming in here, I'm just trying to sort of sculpt with anatomy and give more of what's supposed to be happening in this figure. Although I'm falling back too much on just making hard lines and trying to kind of like shouting. You ever do that where instead of just making your point clearer, you just raise your voice and think people are going to understand you better? That doesn't work. But what I'm sometimes when I feel like, oh, this doesn't quite look right, I'll start drawing darker and darker lines. Like somehow that's going to be the key to making it read like it's supposed to, instead of really figuring out what's happening with it anatomically, artistically. I'll tell you what I think would help me a lot, and maybe I'll do some of these studies in the future. It's just doing studies with organic shapes, organic volumes, where you just have like, let's say I just make a weird shape like this. But doing those kind of studies where you give a certain sense of this pencil is too dull, I got to switch to one that's got a slightly, it's not about it, how sharp the point is, it's about having a longer point so that more tones exposed, so I can make broader tones as opposed to, soft, as opposed to very small range of tones. But then just kind of shading these objects so that trying to give them a sense of three-dimensionality. And this isn't necessarily a great example of that exercise, but the idea, if I were to come in here and cross contour it, the idea of learning with, if I can get good at making abstract organic shapes feel like they have volume, then I can apply that to more believable shapes. Legs, arms, torsos, what have you. In fact, honestly, just making those cross contours made me realize the problem I had with this leg is I was dropping the calf down too far. All right. See, Shane's in the chat. How you doing, Shane? Wrapping up here. I'm only going to be drawing for a few more minutes. We went a little bit long today. We're kind of near the tail end of this stream. But I hope that you're doing well, doing healthy, and staying healthy, and enjoying life. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go and apply these cross contours to that foreshortened arm that I was working on at the beginning of the stream, because I feel like the cross contours are helping me sort of see the volumes better. But anyway, filling a whole sketchbook with organic shapes with cross contours on it, I think might be something. It's one of those exercises that I don't do often enough. Like all of these things that we know that we could do for practice to make ourselves better artists, but we don't do. This is one of those things for me. So, yeah, maybe it's something that I will get into the habit of doing in the future. Let's see here. Cassiel and Ironbox are talking story stuff. I'll leave them to that. Shane says he has some good news. Well, let's go out on some good news, and then I will wrap the stream up. Or actually, I'm not sure if you're still there. Well, I follow you on Facebook, so I will see the good news that you share when you share it there. I'm gonna wrap things up here because I've got some other family life things I've got to attend to before continuing with drawing work. Yeah, bugs me that screen just isn't as clear as I'd like it to be. Problem being is that in order to get this down close to my drawing, it's kind of close. It's very similar to being, it feels like it's like sort of right in my face while I'm trying to work. Like it's right above the drawing and kind of gets in the way. Yeah, I think I probably should have been drawing closer the whole time. I was trying to draw with the camera farther up so that you guys could actually see the reference, what I was working from. But I think it's probably better in the future when I get back to these to just draw where I've got the camera set, so it'll take up about, well, I mean, that's kind of what I was doing, because a lot of times I'll draw zoomed in too much. A lot of times I will draw adjusting camera here. Oh. Like the paper that I've got is just right below the edge of the bottom right there. The top is just right above where my finger is. So, all right. Anyway, that's it. Me going through, doing some analysis on some bad figure drawings. Hopefully learning some. I do feel like I learned a little bit. I'm going to fall back on my old cross contouring technique for analyzing that forearms for the first drawing that I didn't quite nail. All right. Move the camera out of the way. So everybody, thank you for joining me on the live stream, for hanging out. I hope you guys are doing some interesting stuff to make some art, keep a little art in your life. Maybe working on a cool creative project, a comic or a piece of art, graphic novel, a quilt or whatever you're knitting, Amaris. Anyways, if you'd like to support this channel, additional bonus live streams twice a month. We do a thing called Art Book Study Group for as little as $2 a month. You can get in on that. We sit down and we spend 3 hours drawing from some of the best art books around. Right now, I've been working from Walt Reed's The Figure, and been enjoying that, learning a lot going through that. So head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. Get those 2 bonus live streams per month. You're able to read my comic books for free, digitally online, and tons of blog posts throughout the month. And if you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, be able to get work in progress animated gifts delivered right to your inbox and more, you can sign up for my monthly free newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics for free digitally on Kindle or Comixology, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. The first volume has issues 1 through 4. Second volume, the conclusion of the series, has issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, sketches, character designs, page layouts, script excerpts, and more. You can check all those out, amazon.jeremy.net. Everybody, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for, for supporting this channel with the likes and the shares and the subscribes. That's it for now. Go be creative.